So this oak tree may have fallen, but he is still growing away beautifully and is also home to the fairies. We use oak medicinally. It's the bark that we use from the smaller branches like this, and it's incredibly high in tannins. When you've tasted it, you are very aware of that. Super astringent. It's also anti-inflammatory and antiseptic. So the quercus tree, they first extracted tannins from it, and I think the word tannin comes from the old Celtic word for oak, I think. You can use it as a very powerful astringent for acute diarrhoea. You'd make up a decoction of the dried bark and just have a little bit, sort of little and often. But you'd really want that diarrhoea to stop to be drinking oak. It is puckering, to say the least. It's a nice gargle for sore throats as well, and it can be made into tooth powders and mouthwashes to help gum issues. But it is, of course, an exceptional tree and lovely to spend time with oak. And as I say, this tree has been taken over by the fairies. How's that for a beautiful birch tree in the breeze? This betula has been, the fairies have been at this one too, decorating it with hearts. Quite rightly too. Lovely medicine in the birch tree. The leaves are very diuretic and antiseptic and tonic, so we use them in things like cystitis and rheumatism, arthritis. Very clearing herb, moves fluid out of the body. And also you can use the bark externally on the skin. That's really nice for very aching muscles. You would use the damp, moist side of the bark if you remove it and place that directly onto your skin. I know people who have hurt themselves while out on hikes and have used the bark to relieve pain, and apparently it's very good for that. Beautiful birch tree. Diuretic, clearing and tonic. Down here I found my little buddy Toril, which is funny because we were just speaking about oak, and Tormentil's another herb which is very astringent and would be used for internally for diarrhoea and as a gargle for sore throats and things like that. It's the roots that we use. I'll just pick this herb so you can have a better look at what it looks like. It was just growing under the birch. I love Toril. I used to pick it a lot in my student days. It would grow a lot in the lovely, actually, funnily enough, in the birch wood that I live next to. So lovely Toril, pick the roots and make it into lovely astringent medicine. I'm going to bring you home with me. Blowing in the breeze, 4 petals in Toril and very distinctive leaves. Lovely. Please excuse the sound of the rain, but if you're interested in edibles and foraging, there's some lovely wood sorrel growing here. Looks very like clover, doesn't it? And then white flowers will come up. I found more Toril growing quietly out of the way behind some trees and bushes, and it reminds me that when we used to pick it, my friend and I, in those birch woods, we used to say that when you're looking for Toril, you should look for the places that you would hide out in the woods if you were caught short with diarrhoea, which is what Toril would treat, because it grows in those places, you know, under trees, down in ditches, behind bushes and things. So it's a good way of remembering where to find it. Look for the places you might run and hide to if you were caught short in the wild. And there's also another lovely herb growing here. Can you see those lovely blue, vibrant spikes coming up out of the green? This is bugle, sometimes not mentioned in the herbals, but it's a lovely herb. And I think of it in the same way that I think of self-heal. So not only is it a lovely vulnerary herb, its astringency is also good for the gut, so nice for diarrhea, and it's a lovely tonic, like self-heal. If you're feeling under the weather and your glands have gone up in your throat, it's lovely for that. Make a spring, early summer infusion with bugle and self-heal and cleavers. Beautiful, lovely tonic. Make you feel better after the winter, get you well for the summer. Excellent for sore throats and tonsillitis. And yes, a lovely herb for wounds and injuries. Those beautiful bugles. Look at those. How beautiful is that medicine? I did another video on pine recently, and I talked about how you can use pine and spruce and fir tips like these, lovely soft tips, as a lovely tonic, high vitamin C infusion. There they are, lovely and soft. They make a very refreshing drink. Good when you're under stress and you're using up much more vitamin C to help you fight off any opportunistic infections. You could add them to your nice bugle spring tonic tea. Here's some lovely hawthorn. I was talking to a few students recently about the disconnect they feel when they're just studying herbs in a book, and you can also have that same disconnected feeling if you're just using them as a liquid in a brown bottle or the dried herb in a packet. I think it's so important as herbalists that you come out and get to know the herbs and harvest them. And I aim to have like a half, 2/3 of my dispensary stocked from herbs that I've foraged, wildcrafted and grown myself. You learn so much more just by actually spending time with them, seeing where they grow, how they feel, what they smell like, what they taste like, bringing the fresh herb back and making an infusion, seeing how you feel when you drink it. Is it cooling? Is it warming? Is it bitter, sweet, astringent? Yeah, get out and have fun with the herbs. So we all know that Hawthorne crataegus is superb heart medicine. What it does is it strengthens the heart, it strengthens the myocardium, it increases the blood flow there, dilates the coronary arteries, and it makes your myocardium contract more forcefully and effectively, but it doesn't raise the blood pressure or increase the heartbeat as it does that, which is really therapeutically impressive. Now the blooms are nearly over here, aren't they? See if I can find any that are still quite intact, because we use the leaves and the blooms, and then come the autumn we can use the amazing berries, and they're all cardiotonics, cardioprotectors. They bring down the blood pressure, although I find that they'll also bring up low blood pressure, so it's a normalising herb. Wow, isn't this a lovely one? Really droopy branches. It's lovely for smoothing out arrhythmias, good for palpitations. So obviously with that cardioprotective, regulating, normalising, strengthening activity, it's a herb with applications for lots of heart conditions, myocardial weakness, angina. It can improve performance, so if someone's been really under the weather, it's a nice herb to sort of help build up their stamina. And I guess you can consider it one of our adaptogens, a Western adaptogen. But for me, hawthorn isn't just about the physical heart, it's about the emotional heart as well. It's a lovely herb to give to the people that you love because of its physical strengthening properties, but it's also so good for the emotions. It really helps to open people up. If you've got someone who talks about like they're watching their life as if it was playing on a television, they're not really experiencing it, hawthorn can be used to help someone truly experience life and feel their emotions. So it's a herb that you can consider in treatments for anxiety and stress and depression when you're finding that characteristic in someone. It's great for nightmares and anxiety, really good for children. That sort of calming side of this herb has been used in ADHD in children. And as a heart herb, people think of it as a scary herb. I suppose luckily for me, in my family, you know, we just used to pick the leaves and the buds and eat it. So for me it wasn't it was just an edible plant until I studied it as a medicine. It wasn't scary, so it's actually a very safe herb. And it's a herb that you really need to come out and spend time with, watch her change over the year. There's a lovely little snail enjoying that leaf. Yeah. Spend time with the blossoms, drink the blossoms, and then work with the berries as well when they grow. See how much more warming they are. And a lovely tincture can be made by making a tincture, well, earlier than now when the blooms are out, and then making another tincture with the berries and then combining them, and that way you get a lovely rounded medicine. And it's a really old tree. It's been growing in the UK. I think it predates something like 6000 BC. It's a member of the rose family, and it's got a real long tradition in the UK. The amazing hawthorn. And you see nettles are flowering and starting to go to seed. Don't forget that you can collect the seed and make them into medicine. You can eat them or tincture them. So, plenty of nettle harvests to be done throughout the year with the leaves, the roots and the seeds. We've got lots of lovely horsetail growing along here. And if you're wanting to connect with herbs, horsetail is an incredibly ancient herb for you to connect with, and it's from prehistoric times, and it's been around for like 300 million years or more, and it used to grow really tall, like 30-40 meters, so you know that, but that tall, taller than that, and they formed the forests back then. They're so tactile, they're really strong and tough. That's because they draw up lots of silica from the soil. So they're great mineral herbs, really good for people who are low on minerals. You know, they come from that ancient time. I always think of them as they come from like the building blocks of life, and they represent building blocks to me for the body, so that the real base minerals. And their silica is water soluble, so it's beautifully easy to absorb and travel around the body. People with brittle nails, weak nails, weak hair, this is a lovely herb for, although I only use it short term. It's very astringent, it's a hemostatic, has a reputation for use in things like incontinence, bedwetting. A lot of people use it for recurrent bad UTIs. So it's a herb that you should go and spend time with. Look at that stem, it's got a really interesting stem. Study up on it. You need to be careful which medication someone's taking, especially if they're on certain diuretics. Make sure you give it with something like dandelion leaf, which is high in potassium. Horsetail. They used to scrub their pots and pans with it. You can see why. It's really tough. So yeah, if you want to feel connected to the history of our planet's plants, you need to spend time with the amazing Equisetum. And it does grow everywhere. You'll find it no bother. There it is, sucking up lots of silica from the soil. So a late spring herb walk in Scotland, in the beautiful fairy woods.